Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, I just want to apologize. This is a little later than I normally get to you. I've been up for quite some time. I'm still battling this cold. I can't seem to shake it, and fortunately, my son came down with it as well. But you know what? If this is all we have to deal with over Thanksgiving, we should count ourselves blessed. But going forward from here, I also got a new computer, so I had to set up a lot of new things and get it running. So hopefully this all goes pretty smoothly and doesn't look any different on your end. So here's big stories. We've been covering them all week. Your next 10 days, as shown by the European model, got a couple of big things that are going on here. We're going to get some flow that comes in and it kind of splits. So we're going to have a lot of convergent flow in the midsection of the country, weaker flow that's in the western United States, and the subtropical jet stays pretty far to the south, okay? So that's one of the major issues here across the United States, and we'll take a look at the temperature pattern in a few moments. The other big story, of course, is in South America. The model's trended drier in this region, much warmer over here in eastern Brazil, and the flooding continues to be a problem in central Brazil. We did see some better rains get into Argentina. That's also part of this story. And then the last thing I'm going to kind of dig into here is we're looking at what these temperatures are doing, what the pattern is up to. And I'll be honest with you, there might be a little bit of a story coming out of the polar vortex I think we should be discussing. So I'm going to cover all of that today, and you can kind of skip around in the video to find the parts you want to see, but let's dig into this. All right, over the last 3 days, this is what our total accumulated rainfall has looked like. And I'm going to let you know something. I always read the comments. I appreciate the comments. I'm sorry that I don't always reply back to them, but I do read them. And I really appreciate it when you let me know about stuff happening that I don't often see or talk about. For example, we've had some pretty nasty wildfires over here in the Appalachian Mountains. And I was looking on satellite, seeing after all this rain came through, I'll be anxious to see if those fires have been put out. So I went back to the 19th, and you can see up here in parts of Virginia just some of the wildfire smoke recently. So there's been smoke in much more places than just this, but I wanted to point out a recent event there. Now, with this system that rolled through, we did get some snow out of it. So looking over the last 3 days, now this only goes until last night at 6 p.m. This will update again in a couple of hours from now. We'll have the overnight snowfall totals, but a little bit of the white stuff in Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan. And then, of course, as we thought, much more of it would be falling into parts of New England, and it's still going here this morning. So we're going to see a lot of these snowfall totals really come up here as the new data are made available to us. Just thinking about snow, I want to show you, I do make these maps. They go out of my report, and what they are is they just show you the season-to-date snowfall totals. I get this data from from NOAA here. And as you look kind of across the country, it's always fun to see the data, but it's good to compare it to normal. So if you're curious, this is what the percent of normal snowfalls look like. And your eye's probably drawn just a couple of areas that have had some heavier snow this year. Really just one big event that dumped all that snow into this area. But there will be some more snow that gets added to this picture, and I'm excited to kind of see how that changes here, especially for parts of the plains. The bigger picture info on precipitation. Since the start of the month, that system that did roll through, it did bring halfway decent moisture into an area that was really, really dry. And of course, we saw the severe weather earlier this week. But it really didn't make too big of a dent overall in the kind of the long-standing drought problems we've had in parts of the Midwest and then through New England, where this system is kind of cutting through and finishing up today. And just because a lot of this affects major river systems in the middle section of the country, I do want to show you the Mississippi right now this morning is about 9 feet below low stage. And given the forecast I started with, which is this one, you notice there's not a lot of moisture that's coming into the Mississippi anytime soon. So as we think about today, I'm going to take you to this map looking at jet stream level winds today into tomorrow. And a couple of things to take note of. There's a trough that's sneaking in the northwest. There's actually one that today is going to run right down the spine of the Rockies and get down here almost into Mexico. But take a look at the strength of this one small piece of the subtropical jet stream there. That sucker is really, really screaming along. We'll come back to the Pacific in a few moments, but I want to show you what this is going to do. So if we go to the high-res NAM, picking this up at 6 a.m. this morning, we watched one system exit east. We need to get as much of this rain out of this as we possibly can just to continue to work against some of the long-standing drought issues. And look at how heavy the snow will be in parts of New England here, especially into Maine. We then after that watch two things. So keep an eye right down here. This is getting into tonight, Wednesday night, playing into Thursday morning really early. Now watch this piece of kind of lift in the atmosphere on the nose of that jet coming in here. So remember, it kind of made the hard turn here. Now watch here first. This just goes throughout the day on Thursday from Thanksgiving. By the time we get into early Friday morning, so in the span of a day, it will go from Mexico to South Carolina. That's really screaming along there. And as you noticed, we're watching what's been pretty well forecast by the models, this snow that's coming down here early Thursday morning. out of Montana, going to stretch all the way from southeastern Oregon through the Snake River Valley, some light snow possible, and then into Wyoming. And we'll watch on Thursday that spread into parts of South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado as well, back into Utah. And we'll just see how much snow we can eventually get out of this, maybe even some flying here in Kansas as well. Okay, so before we kind of dive into the multi-model analysis, I want to give you the bigger picture. So we're going to go back up to the upper levels of the atmosphere, and we're going to kind of keep the same theme going that we've had lately, which is the story seems to be written based upon fluctuations in the jet stream here in the North Pacific. So I went ahead and played you through the weekend and into early next week. Let's go back and just have a quick look at it. There's the deeper trough that goes over the parts of the Four Corner states in the Intermountain West, but that system comes out relatively starved for moisture, and it moves across the country and is not really going to be doing too much in terms of adding a lot of precipitation to the country. And then behind it, we have that familiar pattern, the one I don't like, right? The one that comes with the northwest flow that just zaps the chances of getting good moisture return out of the Gulf, and therefore any sort of a storm system. As we play it out farther, next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so this will finish the month of November, we continue to see kind of our two main spikes. Remember, we talked about this yesterday. There's where our troughs are. We've seen some ridging here over the western part of North America. But as we start November, remember how we had a discussion yesterday about the chance, it was showing up first in the GFS, of getting some better troughs coming into the West Coast. That is something that we need to be talking about as a possible change going forward. Now the European model has kind of picked up on it. So before I give you too much hope in the model's kind of ability to capture this, I do want to show you something from Ryan Malley. So again, brilliant scientist, a good friend. I love his work. He's showing you here the skill scores between the ECMWF in blue and the GFS in red. And just lately, they have really just plummeted here in their accuracy. Now, what it's attempting to do here is this is a 5-day Northern Hemisphere anomaly correlation against what we call the 500 hectopascal height field. So it's just the trough and ridge pattern. How well is the model capturing that? And it has really, really fallen off a lot. So that begs the question, and Ryan answered this. You got to go follow his Twitter account. It's pretty amazing. But he mentioned this yesterday, and he put on top of this graphic, and I got to get his permission to show it, but he put on top of this the GraphCast. Remember, we started talking about that last week. Now, there's a reason why I haven't been showing you a lot of the GraphCast data just yet, and part of that is because I can't do a comparison of it with my own maps. So, I like to show you these, all right, here's the precipitation coming through in the next 7 days. And then one of my favorite things to do is say, well, this is what the GFS says, right? And the maps are the same projection, and the maps have the same color bar, and therefore you can do a quick comparison between the two models. So that's the next 7 days from the European. This is the next 7 from the GFS. Not a whole lot to really talk about here. But I can also show you the GraphCast data. It's just that I can't, it's not the same color bar. It's in millimeters, and it's from the ECMWF Center. It's a great map. It's hard to put it in context. So I'm just being patient and waiting, but it has way outperformed in terms of that skill score, the ECMWF operational and the GFS operational. So take a look. This is the newest data. Again, you can get this if you just go to charts.ecmwf.int. Just click on the machine learning radio button on the left. It'll be over here, and you can go look at it yourself. It's a great tool to be using. This will be worked into my forecasts in much greater detail with time. And if I can get a copy of this running locally, I mean, it'd be fantastic. So I'll work on that, and as it comes about, I'll be sure to show it to you. But as you just saw, we compare these models. There's not a whole lot being added after the snow comes out here, and that's it. I mean, the whole thing just kind of breaks down. And we can look at it by going to our GFS versus ECMWF comparison. So we've already watched the high-res NAM get us to where that snow spreads out of Wyoming and into the plains. It's pretty well resolved in both models. We'll see how much in just a few seconds. And then that low tries to move its way as it slowly ejects this weekend across the Midwest. So we could get some light snow throughout a big section of the Midwest. Notice how the GFS has got more snow up here in the Red River Valley, for example. But it'll be light. What comes through here will be relatively light. And then that system moves east. But once again, because the subtropical jet's way over here, any low pressure it's developing is not hugging the East Coast. So while there could be some good lake effect snow because the lakes are very warm, and this will be strong northerly wind across them early next week, it's not like it's going to be this ideal setup for a big East Coast cyclone. So this is Monday, and then we just go into next week, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and there's just not a lot hitting the country. It's all the way out there about day 8, 9, 10 that at least the GFS tries to put something in the midsection of the United States. It's not there in the European at all, though. So I look at all of that, and we'll look at the ensembles in a second, but I want to give you at least a quick idea on what the snow is going to do. So let's add it up from the European model first. So as that system kind of comes down this weekend here, or excuse me, late this week, Thursday, Friday, this is where our snow extent is going to be. And again, you can look at these numbers and just remember the blues start at 4 inches. So the model's pretty aggressive here with what gets out into parts of Nebraska, Kansas, out of Colorado, even down into Oklahoma possibly. But then very light snow spreading in through here. Here's our lake effect, and this is what we're still getting up the East Coast. And some of this fell last night because this is a 0Z run. The GFS, the newest run they've got, that's what we see. So we'll play this out a week as well. So a little bit different in the placement. Sorry, let's go back and, sorry about that, new computer here. There we go. There's the ECMWF, there's the GFS. You can kind of toggle back and forth. And again, these maps are all available on agweather.com for you to look at. But that's what I've got. I mean, that's what I think we're seeing in terms of snowfall. The next part of this is to look at the ensemble precipitation. And the probability of getting more than an inch over the next 10 days is limited to very few areas. It's just dry West Coast. We're dry, really dry throughout the midsection of the United States, getting into the Midwest, Great Lakes. And this is primarily from what's going through right now. So if I flip this over, and I bet we got a new model run. Yeah, we did. A little late in recording, so that happens. There we go. Let's take it out to 10 days. That's your probability of getting less than a half of an inch. So quite dry across most of the United States. Now, we are anticipating that when we get out there past day 10, which would be December 2nd, watch this. I want you to keep an eye right here. This is the weak flow we still have at the beginning of December. But by the 4th and 5th and 6th, the model is attempting to extend that jet into the west. So that's what the GFS was telling us yesterday. And that's why when we look out there at the week 2 forecast, the CPC began to increase for the west, the ECMWF increased for the west, and the European is, or excuse me, the GFS is still wet just off the west coast. So we could be getting into a time period in the month of December that finally gives us a little bit of a shift, because November has been not what I anticipated, and I've kind of explained that to you over the last couple of weeks. Okay, from there, I do want to talk about these temperatures because I've been watching this polar vortex very carefully. It's nice and tight right now. You saw that at the beginning. But as we play this forward, there's a couple things to take note of here. We're starting to see a link at the end of the month between the polar vortex and probably the tropospheric vortex as it gets over here to the east. But anytime we see kind of this push in the stratosphere into this section of the Bering Sea and the Chukchi Sea, it oftentimes weakens and kind of disrupts the polar vortex. Now, what we often also find is that the early season model forecasts of the polar vortex typically fail to actually capture its behavior. They oftentimes show disruptions like this that don't end up happening. I just want to let you know that I'm watching it. But as it currently stands, its value, even in the forecast, is still expected to be a little stronger than normal. So I'm just telling you, let's keep an eye on it because it's going to be a factor as we move forward into December, January, February. Next, though, let's take a look at the latest frost outlook. It's a little bit farther to the south again in the newest update, and we can see more of the Central Valley of California that's going to be flirting with those low 30 temperatures. This is something watch locally in your forecast. Remember, you can get your local forecast from agweather.com as well. If we take a look at what those high temperatures are going to do, here's today. Watch the change here, right? That's been a topic all week. So we see mid-60s today, and then on Thanksgiving, we'll be in the upper 20s for highs. What a switch. Cold air runs down the spine of the Rockies for Friday into Saturday and Sunday. Much of the east stays cold in this pattern as well. We get into early next week. That's what's going to be supportive of that snow that's going to try to move across here on Sunday into the Midwest. And then we get out there to next Tuesday, and we really start to see the pattern doing, this. And that's where we start to get more mild conditions west, keep the cooler conditions off to the east. Our 5-day sliding window of temperature anomalies, you'll notice a little different look here in this now. Over the next 5 to 10 days, I'll park it right there, day 5 through 10. Now watch, day 10 through 15, look at the Canadian Prairie. this could be the beginning of a bit of a pattern shift to bring this more mild air in December in this direction while troughs try to get into the western United States. There's still some clues that that's going to happen. Now, I am not going to show you the new European weeklies because they're going to add confusion to this. I don't think they've picked up on it yet. I don't think the CFSV2's picked up on this yet. And what I think they're all not responding well to is the fact that the MJO is moving. And I still think it is the most dominant teleconnection. It is moving fast. So you just notice here that the slant is pretty pronounced, okay? And therefore, how well it couples with the Northern Hemisphere jet stream and its repositioning is still yet to be known. But I want to let you know that this December, after that first 5 or 6 days of December, I don't expect the rest of December to look like that. I don't think persistence is going to win because of enough bigger moving things overall in the pattern. So here we are at the end, and I want to talk about South America. So yesterday I was having a good conversation with my friend and colleague Kirk Hens. He's over at BAM Weather, great company, love what they do. I purposely, just so you know, don't ever watch their stuff because we don't want each other's forecast to influence one another. But we do text about things at times, and we were talking a bit about the precipitation across South America. So if you go to the CPC website, there is a link to what's called the global monsoons. You'll see it over here. And you can click on the American monsoons, okay? And when you click on that, you can see our gridded precipitation data for the last, well, you can go up to 180 days and then over their sets of months if you want, or if they get that populated. So I'm going to look at the last 90 days. And as you know, there's been major flooding in southern Brazil. So take a look at this. We've got places in southern Brazil right now that just in the last 90 days have an excess, I mean, that's 500 to 900. So in excess of 400 millimeters of rainfall. I can't do that math in my head this morning. So 400 millimeters to inches is 15 inches, in excess of 15 inches of rainfall. So let's come back to that map, which I think was here. There we go. And then you go north of that, like up into Mato Grosso, and you see that there's places up here that have had a deficit that's been building in November that is now worth, you know, gosh, we're approaching here 110, maybe more, millimeters in deficit. So we're talking about a 4-inch deficit in those areas. So there has been rain, but the drought has been building, and we've seen this pretty clearly when we look at the newest root zone soil moisture from NASA GRACE. And as I look at this carefully, we've watched this area continue to get drier while this is in the highest percentile for being wet. And the farther west you go in Argentina, we continue to see the drought conditions really showing up here. So I bring all that up because we're still watching some rain advance. And so as I play this forward, you can see that the European model is still bringing in some moisture into southern Brazil. What's different about the newest forecast is the drier regions are here, but this has brought more moisture into Mato Grosso, into southern Goiás, through Sao Paulo, compared to previous time periods in the month of November. To look at it another way, this is your next 10 days, your next 15 days in terms of precipitation anomaly. So again, what is different is the northern extent of where that wetter condition is trying to move in the models. And this dryness that you see that's over here, this is very well correlated with the MJOs shifting over to phase 3 and 4 and 5. So this is going to continue to make things worse for a large area like Bahia, parts of Minas Gerais, Tocantins, and a big section of Mato Grosso as well, while southern Brazil continues to deal with a lot of flooding. One of the things I'm going to be looking at is the influence of this on sunlight. I do make a global, I wonder if I can find that really quickly here. Yeah, so here, this map is looking at cumulative downward solar flux. Sorry, I have it in Portuguese because I make this for the Brazilians, and it's over the last month. Now, take a look. Where we have had abundant sunshine and heat, the values are much higher than normal, which means we've had clear skies here. This is the big question. Look at this huge section of southern Brazil, parts of Santa Catarina, getting into Rio Grande do Sul, and parts of Uruguay, even Argentina. Very, very cloudy conditions. And we know how important it is for soybeans to receive sunlight. So this is critical. We've got to watch this continue to evolve here, as this area is expected to have even more problems with sunshine as we go forward. The one thing that I do need to mention, and we're just going to mention it and leave it there, is that I told you I wasn't going to show you the U.S. outlook from the ECMWF weeklies. I just think it's not well initialized. South America may really, that's showing a lot of wet weather getting really far to the north in December. Is that pattern flip possible? I'm not 100% sure. Now, I'm not going to record a video tomorrow morning. I hope you all get to spend time with friends and family, but we'll pick back up again soon. I appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and take care.